Viscri. Anyway, the local authority gave some of this land to a group of gypsies, and at that time this hillside was, well, in poor condition, it was getting covered in scrub. And the first thing these guys did was set fire to it. And of course several conservations said, oh dear. And it's perfect because that dry south-facing slope is basically steppe. And steppe partly maintains its structure by periodic fires. And a lot of the plants are disabled them to grow up. The danger now is that a lot of the local farmers use fire as a means of clearing old grass. And they burn every winter, and they often burn quite late. And one year I went to look at some early spring plants and they'd all been scorched because of late burning. And worse than that, now we've got so many sheep, the sheep come and eat. So the sheep, we had a mild winter this winter, and the sheep were eating and the farmers were burning. And some places just look terrible at the moment, really bad. But this is one of our best sites in the area, and we're establishing a little micro-reserve here, a long line set up by colleagues in Valencia about 20 years ago. They had a life project. The idea of micro-reserves is, in a country like Spain, you can't fit all the great diversity into nature reserves. So you have these small reserves that just pinpoint and monitor the important species. They don't usually have legal protection, but the idea is a one-page, simple agreement between the landowner and the person managing and the sort of botanical authority, the local botanical authorities, often the university, and in this case it could be adept. But it doesn't mean a full nature reserve. We have an exclosure site up there. That's to do with a project involving Milvus, the bird charity based in Turkey Moorish. It's a project studying feeding ecology of the lesser spotted eagle. And if you see an eagle here, there's often eagles just so that it's a lesser spotted eagle. But this is a rich area for birds. There are several species of shrike in these trees. There are golden orioles nesting here. I've seen grey partridge here. Corncrake quite often. We may well hear corncrake in slightly longer damp grass than well, there's at least 15 of the species, the plant species on these dry slopes are in the Romanian Red Data Book. And there's a iris, the leafless iris, and the Tartar cabbage or steppe sea kale are both on the EU Habitat Directive Annex 2 in need of protection, and the grassland is also two types of dry grass listed on the EU Habitat Directive. So this is a classic place to go into a Natura 2000 network site, and it's one of the best sites in this area. Now we'll take a walk across. As we this field here, this is quite interesting. This has been cut for some years. The next bit is
it was arable in the promised land.
Yes. The next bit was arable. It's a slightly tired hay meadow. But what is interesting is in these habitats that are going back to good grassland, you get lots of things like some of the clovers that you don't get, for example, on the higher slopes. And then over the other side of that hill you get one or two damper patches, and there's a whole range of species. You don't know what you're going to find next. These are basically movulae. It's a sort of giant movula. And so the north slope tends to be with more woodland species, but once you get to the top of that ridge, the land beyond that is designated as pasture. So pasture over there, and hay meadow on this side. And the two traditionally in the countryside here were kept separate, but the problem in the modern world is the EU is giving just a bit too much money to shepherds who are encroaching now on the hay meadow. And not these ones, the ones here are very good, but there's been an increase of shepherds just down here, and they're even building permanent skimmers on the lower slopes. It looks bad for the ecology. It worries me. But I hope colleagues are lobbying in the right places to get
we get drunk and light the fire.
Okay, well let's head up. And the real plants to look out for on the slopes, a lovely big pink thing, burning bush that I showed last night. There's just so many flowers, but we'll see them as we go along. I mean, bellflowers and possibly orchids. We'll see the remains of iris, but the iris beginning of the year. And I'll show you if I can, the tartar cabbage. It's an impressive plant even when it's gone over. But when it's flowering, you get a great creamy dome of scented flowers. And this is like the nodding sage, which you also see, lovely bluey violet nodding plant. These are plants really of the Russian and Ukrainian steppes. And that's why it's important to conserve them in Romania, because Romania, well, as we know, Russia is not a terribly civilized country. And in the modern world, the conservation measures just aren't in place. Sadly, because Russia used to, like Romania, have an amazing network of nature parks and nature reserves. It's another story. But that is a little bit of Ukraine. Across here, and this is pasture main on this side. It's damp, it's not as lime rich, and in damp hollows you get things like globeflights, and it's a mountain almost. And the plants growing with it are things like devil's bit scabious, and you could be in a marsh on the Welsh hills. So that's Wales, that's Ukraine. That's what's so wonderful about this place. Everything's slightly different. Okay, let's go to Ukraine. Off to Ukraine. Ah, 19th century. Possibly, yeah. But certainly you get pastures here where you get what was formerly damp ground, and you've got quite a lot of white clover. And I think, as I say, we improved in inverted commas our landscape, destroying all our wildlife and wildflowers. And the communists were at it at the same time, but doing it much more crudely. And notice there are a lot of clovers and other members of the pea family, like the red clover. This is a wild type red clover, quite low growing. If you go to a modern farm, probably in southern Romania, you'll get clovers growing up this big. Whether they're any better, one doesn't know, but this is well adapted to the site, good source of nutrition. But there'll be a lot of these leguminous pea flower plants here. Transylvanian meadows characteristically have between 20 and 40 species of clover and related leguminous plants. It's one of the reasons they're so fantastic to look at. But lots of this lovely yellow rattle. This is Crinanthus rumelicus, which is, I think, a Balkan and Carpathian endemic.
Eu fac ciorbă din asta.
Cirsium canum.
Limba boului îi spune la noi și eu fac ciorbă ca de salată din asta.
The ox tongue.
Cu
The ox tongue.
Oh yes.
cu zer.
Never occurred to me to
He
eat
does
that.
soup with like the kind of salad soup we have.
Da, în faza asta e chiar bună, încă e bună.
Că nu te înțeapă la,
Da.
la limbă.
Anyway,
Dacă gustați, e cam măcrișul.
I think we have to move on, stop trampling this poor man's
Dar
face.
foarte grasă și bună, în ciorbă e foarte bună.
Go back to the third world, for example, to help pay for development projects. And if somebody produced a new variant of this, the gardens, it'd be nice if some money could come back to the Saxon villages, but it's hard to know. But the main thing is, that's complicated, but the simple fact is that this is another good example of why these meadows are precious. This is a genetic resource. This is a plant that earns people money all over Europe as a garden plant, and is popular, and therefore helps people.
And what's it called?
Charterhouse pink. Dianthus cartusionorum. But my school, which I went to, was called Charterhouse, and funnily enough, the school colour was that dark pink. I don't know if there's any connection. It may be that pink was a special colour to the Carthusian monks.
It's one of the most common nelke. This one, no?
Yes.
This
It's nice because the red colour brings out the other colours in the sword. Anyway, let's find something more exciting. Asia, and has gradually moved west, and you still see it around the Saxon villages, and I'm sure it was used until recently. It's good for a bad chest, and in Western Ireland we see it growing around old churches and old farmhouses as a relic of human occupation. So this is another of this group of plants, these ancient medicinal relics that are another important genetic resource, because there will always be an interest in medicinal plants. For example, homeopathy is a popular medicine in Britain, although our government and the medical establishment try to suppress it. It may seem crazy, it is a bit like witchcraft, but it seems to work. It certainly kept Prince Charles very healthy. He's a lot fitter than I am. He's several years older. Amazing. Right, well, I'm just wondering what the best thing to do. I'm tempted to, rather than go up the steep slope,
The best way to climb is like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well done. Okay, let's do that. This is, Siberian bellflower. This is a plant that goes from the Russian steppe through into Central Europe. Very nice blue flower. That should be fully in flower. More of the Gallium glaucum. Got a nest probably. Be careful, there's a nest, the nesting skylark. So we want to go around this way a bit. That's another indication of richness.
And this is a flower you like?
That's a trefoil. That's a real grasshopper. Grasshoppers are short ones, but there's so many species I wouldn't know which one it was. But these hills are alive with grasshoppers, and they must be major prey for birds, and also in the late summer you get the praying mantis that does this. And huge fat spiders. I don't like spiders, but these are I like going up and tapping them on the web. Oxide daisy, common plant. Not really dry grass, so that like slightly damp. Wonderful warty fruits. Euphorbia epithymoides. It's a dry grassland plant, slightly steppic, and this is dropwort with white flowers and pink buds, which is very characteristic. We'll see a lot more of that, I hope. And the pink plant there is Onobrichis, which is a major fodder crop. And it's interesting because the Onobrichis, or we call it in English, or rather French, I suppose, Saint point. It's been an important fodder crop for probably thousands of years, certainly hundreds. And the plants here are slightly different to the ones in Turkey and the Balkans and the rest of Europe. They're intermediate, so I think they're a distinct Transylvanian race. If we were talking about cultivated plants, we'd say a land race. They are semi-cultivated because that is a major constituents of hay meadows here. And there are more modern varieties that you sometimes see, especially bigger and pinker. But this one is clearly adapted to this landscape, this environment. It looks wonderful here, and it's one of the most important constituents of the grassland. And it does seem to be very much a local speciality. With these slightly yellowy, orangey, slightly fleshy, orangey pink flowers. It's not the true pink.
This one here.
No, but that's a very, very interesting plant.
Now, our tramping on all of these won't hurt.
They'll grow up, yes. You don't want to, one doesn't want to do it too much, but this rain, in this rain, they'll grow up. Up in the mountains, they're more careful with their hay crops. They're more precious. Life is more difficult, so they're very careful not to walk in the hay. But a lot of this hay is just, it's not really, it is old arable land, so I don't feel any problem walking here.
Is this asparagus supposed to be here?
That's it, it is here, yes. But what does worry me, sometimes I came here once and also been a botanical excursion, probably with students, and the whole hillside was clawed and eroded. That was the problem. Another dry grassland plant, this is asparagus, wild asparagus. And I was rather pleased in that I'm not a native of this area. I suppose nor is Mihai, but Mihai had been looking for this and I was able to show it to him.
Roman and Danette, they were keeping this place secret.
But I've been seeing asparagus here for years and there's a lot of it.
It's very tasty.
It's good. Germanica.
Yes. Okay.
A rare plant in Britain, but I think it's always been rare.
It's a yellow one. You say it. How do you say it? This one.
Hay rattle, Rhinanthus.
Rhinanthus.
Okay. Rumelicus.
Yes, Rumelicus. Yes.
There is also Rhinanthus minor here, but we haven't seen it yet. Darker in colour.
Oh, look, these.
It's often associated with recolonised land. Very rare now in Britain, but in Britain it was one of several species associated on coastal areas. When you'd had a stunner, and we used to have them in England, over the years after the stunner had moved, plants were recolonised, and this was one of them. This is a plant that likes episodes of disturbance followed by episodes of stability, and it's very special. It's a member of the pea family, but in English we call it the grass vetch because it looks like a grass, and if it wasn't in flower you'd say it was a grass. But there is the pea flower and there is a little pod, and that's extraordinary, and that's one of my very favourite flowers. And the colour, it's a sort of pink, but a flesh pink. It's quite unusual, and that's really a very, very nice thing, quite common around here, which is good, but sort of plant that will get rare over much of Europe and certainly is rare now in England. It's Lathyrus disnisolia. But it's such a wonderful colour.
This is really cool. Look at the
You wouldn't
color.
know. And also, it doesn't even actually have leaves. I don't think these are leaves. These are flattened. I think it usually has two little flanges. These are like little flanges. They're not even proper leaves. It's a totally crazy plant. In Wiltshire last week because they still gather it in Western England as a vegetable. I suspect actually all these lily plants are slightly poisonous. I think if you ate too much asparagus it might do you a bit of damage, but it's a luxury, so you're never going to eat too much.
To your brain or to your stomach?
Only the rich people.
To your brain or to your stomach?
This is the asparagus.
Both.
The wild one or the cropped one?
Doesn't matter.
Which asparagus?
Well, I think all asparagus.
All?
I think any of these species are probably slightly poisonous, but don't worry. And most things you eat too much. If you eat too many tomatoes, apparently you go red.
Did you say it's in the lily family, John?
It is. Well, it's a segregate. It's now the asparagus family. They split the lily family into manageable chunks. Right. But it's now Asparaginaceae, I think, is the family. And that and the Star of Bethlehem and quite a lot of other things. I think bluebells are now in that family as well. And they are a bit poisonous.
They're a bit bitter, so...
Yeah. Greeks eat grape hyacinths. And they're horrible, they're slimy and they're bitter. But if you're starving in a mountain village in 1833 in late March, you'll be quite happy to eat them. Now they eat them as a kind of almost a ritual, it's traditional food.
So how would this be eaten? Would you get it much earlier before it flowers?
It'd be a young asparagus
like we
have, but not as thick as the ones we get, but very good.
Yeah.
No, if we'd been here a week or two ago, we could have gathered a
It's like onion or garlic something.
Yeah, it's more like a, yes, but it's doesn't you don't sort of it's much more solid than garlic. And I say it's rather slimy and bitter. But I've never heard them being eaten here. But if you go to Hania in Crete in late February, March, there are barrows full of them. This one here is rather special. This is Jurinea mollis.
Buzdugan. Yes. Buzdugan. Jurinea mollis.
This one.
No.
Muscari.
Colețul celului.
Most plantains are green.
Nu. E pătlagină. Pardon, limba oie.
But this one attracts insect pollinators. The extraordinary thing is that the botanists now, looking at DNA, have put the veronicas, the blue speedwells, we'll see one in a minute, into the same family as this. And it looks outlandish, but if you think of it as a speedwell, a plantain being a green speedwell, it's not. But this is a lovely plant. I showed a picture of this. It attracts a lot of insects. And good garden plant, but it's characteristic of these dry slopes. And all these plants we're seeing now, like the Siberian bellflower, Durinia, these are all indicators of good quality, what we call high nature value grassland. And if you're a farmer, potentially there might be grants available to apply EU ecological environmental measures to the land. You'll get a grant. The trouble is now there are bigger grants for doing damage to the land. So.
Drop, da.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah.
I think it's the white broom, one of the indicators. It's great. All these are indicators.
White broom. White broom îi zice în engleză, dar în română e drop. A lot of them have to do with lambs and sheep.
Yes.
This is coada mielului in Romanian. The lamb's tail.
Yes. Yes, Helen Allen painted that last year. Oh, that one is Stachys recta.
Salvianutans. Este janeș.
White.
Janeș. Clopoței siberieni sunt un pic mai puțin. Campanul ăla. Da, dar e diferit.
Oh, this hasn't quite come out. This is a flax. This is the hairy flax, and that is another indicator of good quality hay meadow, of the best quality. When you see these, you're really beginning to talk EU designated habitats on the Habitats Directive. The actual species.
What, the linen?
The
flake?
Yeah, that's a very good indicator of good dry grass.
Ăla e in.
Wow.
What is this?
What?
I thought that had gone over by now.
Oh.
What is
No. Clematis recta. It's like, clematis that climbs in gardens. This one is just a little tiny bush. Well, not even a bush, it just grows up every year. We may see more of that here. So this is a very important genetic resource. And one of the reasons why I don't want to see GM crops in this area, because they would pollute the populations.
Denumirea?
Populară?
Brassica elongata.
Fetelor, ați ajuns târziu deja. Am văzut, le-ați văzut deja? Jaleș, Salvianutans, da? Aeros, Fresinel. How do you say the Latin name for the Dictamus? Aha, da, Dictamus albus. Am văzut. Say that again, please. John?
Asta e Adonis vernalis.
Da, Adonis vernalis.
Brassica elongata.
Brassica elongata.
And here, I think we have, this is interesting, this is Cephalaria radiata, which is endemic to Transylvania.
Aha. Cephalaria radiata.
Yeah, I didn't see it for years. We kept getting bits in releves, and we thought it was a scabious, which is always a scabious. And then I came here one summer, well, late July, and it was coming into flower, and hundreds of them just dancing amongst the grass. With lovely yellow flowers with mauve anthers. And that's Cephalaria radiata, which is more or less a Transylvanian endemic.
John, this is one.
That is Asinuma canescens, Campanulaceae. It's like a campanula, but the corolla is split. Very tall spikes.
There are more here on this slope.
Quite rare, only very.
John? There are more on this slope.
Yes.
Uite aici, dacă
ăla, da.
You know, there's
Populația de oi a ajuns la un emisferic,
looking after them. I can't get too many.
Right.
Very valuable. Drop down to the road. Yeah, maybe once you think I went down.
Same walk again without the children, so she gets so much more of what you said, but they're
Mai
trying
ales
to
pe
enjoy it their own way.
Nu vorba cum pasc în sine, mă gândeam
Bine,
că
ele
vitele
sunt și ca
poate...
mașina de tot. Și
Exact.
și aia e.
Probabil
de-aia
pas și un pic
You
mai
have to do such things in England, whereas they're just not.
două veruri au cam multe și mai e și problema asta de
Poți să când o păcuțele și cu oile de acolo.
Just so much richness here. England, there are
Dar aia a fost o greșeală ei au zis că trebuie să facă 50 de kg de carne pe hectar. Adică poți fi și
I'll put your explorers on. That's when you put my
același
cap
lucru ca și atunci când ai o vacă sau ceea ce nu e în regulă. Dar ca să devină mai ușor când controlează.
Such beautiful.
She wasn't saying mine, it was when she was saying what you were about to say next. It's like, it's very so like, I love it.
să dai subvenții.
Nu-i corect. Că de fapt ăstea sunt gândite...
Do you remember the lady with the hair, so it's like a palm tree? It's a bit like that as well, wasn't it? You can imagine. You ate some.
Aici nu ai destul de cantări predite pe fiecare fermă, că în zi,
în România, dacă se gândește treaba asta la nivel național, atunci ea are destul, doar că e distribuită diferit, că nu e
în zonele
exact, aici e High Nature Value, e supra și acolo nimic. La nivel național vrem să aplicăm
Ready? Steady? Go!
S-ar putea ca ei să nu fie. Pe noi nu ne interesează ecologic focul de seara, noi avem destulă natură. Și atunci nu e asta, ca nu trebuie să fim
Păi dar nu e obligatoriu prin noua reformă.
and the gypsies collect it and sell it in the market. I think you can buy it in Cluj, but there's about a hectare of it here, and there's only 100 hectares in the whole of Romania of this species. This is another of our very special plants. I think the Romanian conservationists regard this as the community dominated by this is quite important. So steppe cherry, steppe almond. There is also a steppe cherry which grows at a hill. This is the almond.
This is the almond?
There is a steppe cherry which has a little red cherry.
And this is what color are the almonds?
Well, they're just little, they're brown.
And what do you do with it? You eat it? Or?
I don't think so. But it's related to almonds. It has genes that could be useful in almond breeding. So it's another very good genetic resource. So we have a canola or rape, and we have an almond, and we have a cherry. So I think that's a pretty good gene bank, together with all these wonderful garden plants and often medicinal plants as well.
But why do they sell it? I mean, why would you buy it?
They sell it's the flowers they sell.
For decoration, just
For decoration, yeah.
Eu am crezut că sunt, știi, alea albastre.
Ah, cu acăze.
Alea sunt afine.
Nu afine.
Seamănă.
Prunul spinos.
Okay, shall we? Let's go down before we all get too cold.
Porumbele.
Porumbele, da.
Nu, că are țepi. Și frunzele sunt mai mici la...